Figure it out.
Hello, this is Adam Koralik with Figure It Out Productions. The following video is part of our Quick Shoot series. Hey guys, it's Adam here. I just wanted to do a quick intro to let you guys know what this video is. I was recently at a convention called TooManyGames in Philadelphia. I was a guest at the convention, so they flew me out and all that, and I got to have panels, one officially, and then ultimately I ended up doing two more. I did this panel with my buddy Shane, aka Rerez, just as a favor. I asked him if he would join me on the panel because I was afraid that nobody would show up. As it turns out, a lot of people did. The turnout was really, really good. I also want to thank Dee and Dave, or DeeDave, that's the YouTubers who filmed this video for me. They used their own camera. I also want to thank Sean Long, aka RGT85, and a guy named Jeremy. They all came out just to help film this, so thank you guys very, very much. That was awesome of you. And because of them, you guys are actually able to see my panel, which a lot of people requested since they weren't going to be able to come to the convention. So to those of you who did actually come to the convention and did actually get to see this, thank you so much. That meant so much to me. And to the rest of you guys, even if, I'm sure you all wanted to be there in spirit, thank you very much for that. But now you get to actually watch it instead of just being there in spirit. Unfortunately, I have to warn you guys, there was a minor technical problem. The first like 3 or 4 minutes of the panel was not recorded. I mean, the video was, but the audio wasn't. So basically in that time, all I did was, I introduced myself, Shane introduced himself, we kind of went through that process, and we kind of opened it up to Q&A, and then we quickly noticed that we had a bunch of technical issues with the microphones we were using in the video clip there. There was a lot of static coming from them. Often Shane would touch something and it would just, go crazy, so that's really all I guess you need to know beforehand. The other thing is that, once again, I want to thank Dee and Dave for filming this, but their camera, much like mine, has a restriction where like every 20 minutes it just kind of creates a new file, and when it does that, you lose a little bit of the footage in between, so I apologize for those little cuts. They will be inevitable. But anyway, enjoy the rest of the panel.
Party. Recommend 3 games I can find for reasonably cheaply. Besides Crazy Taxi, I already have that one.
Yeah.
But I got mine used in 07, so I only got it with 1 game, and that was Crazy Taxi. I'm looking for a few more.
First question is Shenmue HD. What do I think that's ever going to happen? I think if Sega would be really dumb to not do that. The problem with Shenmue is that it had a lot of corporate tie-ins originally. Like Coca-Cola was in the Japanese version, Timex is in the current version. There's a bunch of other companies, like I think Harpo or whatever, that makes like whatever the lighters are, Zippos or whatever. I don't know, Zippo. What am I thinking about? Yeah, there's a bunch of companies they'd have to go back and be like, yeah, do you want to still do this deal? And there's just a lot of paperwork, so they might end up with a bunch of generic Sega brand watches and stuff like that, but I think inevitably Sega will do something with it. Second question is 3 Dreamcast games I would recommend that presumably are cheap. That part's not too easy anymore. When I was collecting Dreamcast, it was worthless. Nobody wanted that stuff. People, you would find Cannon Spike for like $5 in bargain bins. You said Crazy Taxi. Yeah, Power Stone is still within some reason. Power Stone 2 has unfortunately gone insane. Crazy Taxi 2, I think, is still within reason. The problem with me, though, is the prices. I haven't looked in them in years because I have no reason to. If you have both of the Sonic Adventures, that's always the way to go. Jet Grand Radio, Soul Calibur. Those would be some titles I would recommend offhand. But I can't promise the prices will be good.
Toy Commander.
Yeah.
I love Toy Commander.
Toy Commander was fun.
All right.
It's like one developer only ever made 1 game, and that's the game they made. And if you like toys and you like destroying things, yeah, Toy Commander.
I think it was, I don't know if it was official Dreamcast magazine or like the European version, but one of them had like a Christmas edition of Toy Commander only on the demo disc. Pretty cool.
Oh my god, damn.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can try it sometime.
I was like, you never get a sequel to that game, but there was a Christmas edition. You know, like that.
Yeah, that's kind of like Knights when Knights had a Christmas edition randomly.
And actually, Vigilante 8 Second Offense, best version of the game is on the Dreamcast. It has all the levels from the first game, and it's got better graphics than any other version of the game that came out. The only thing it doesn't have is there's like a special level on the Nintendo 64 release of Vigilante 8. I'm a big fan of this series.
I can tell.
And like, yeah, Vigilante 8 Second Offense on the Dreamcast is by far the best one to get. It's my favorite.
I don't like how you got us mic stand and I didn't. No, it's yours. I saw you first. Now I'll get to you.
I know there's a few panels over the weekend about the business of YouTube and that kind of thing, and I don't want to go too deep down that rabbit hole. Get frustrated by the viewership gap between the deeply researched, thoughtful videos backed by technical knowledge and people just sort of clowning that get 1 million subscribers?
Of course. You know, like, so the question basically is like, do I get annoyed when clickbait videos get tons and tons of views and stuff that people put a lot of hard work into, like this guy right here, don't get as many views as they deservedly should? Yeah, the answer is of course. But one trick I've learned is that if you put a question mark in a title, people will watch it. And I don't like to do that. The only time I ever do that is when I like legitimately am asking a question to people. But I don't want to pull that rabbit out of that hat too many times, because otherwise people go, wow, this guy's just full of shit. Everything he says he doesn't know. Because he's like, is Nintendo gonna make a console? And you're like, yeah, I don't know, whatever. So, yeah, it annoys me because a lot of people who do a lot of hard work deserve way more viewership than they get.
I have to admit, Adam, your videos, I had no idea who you were until 6 months ago. You showed up in my YouTube recommended videos. Mm-hmm. So at least that system's sort of working.
I appreciate that. Well, let me guess. It was either there's one of two videos that was most likely. It was either why isn't Nintendo hardware powerful, which ends in a question mark, or will the NX use cartridges? The only two they ever recommend to people ended in question marks.
I was watching a lot of gaming historian videos at the time, so
He's here.
That might have.
Yeah. He's here, yeah.
He's actually doing a panel tomorrow.
Oh, there you go. Yeah, we hung out with him a little bit last night. This dude's friends with him.
Yeah.
Anyway,
if you ever watch, I'm trying to think of Nintendo. He did a Blockbuster retail video recently. Did you guys see that one from the Game Story? I did the voice of Howard Lincoln. So that's.
Oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
Yeah, it's a weird one.
I liked it.
Yeah, I like watched 3 videos of Howard Lincoln talking, and I was like, he just talks like this, and that's how he speaks, and that was all I could do. I was like, is that okay?
That works,
like, that's
man,
good,
works.
man. That was it.
I believe you had a question?
Yeah, I have a question and then kind of like a follow-up.
Sure.
The first thing first, like, did it freak you out, like, being at a convention and having people like come up to you on the street, like, hey, I love your info?
Not really. I mean, you know, every once in a while you get someone who's a little excessive. I encountered someone like that last night. I'm not going to go into details. But he mistook me as like 3 other people before knowing who I was. And then he just started talking about weird conspiracies. And
You Jontron?
no, but first he asked if I was pro-Jared. Then he asked me if I was the completionist. And then he just started going off. I don't want to go into it because it would take too long. But it's not common, dude. Like that doesn't. This is a convention where people knew I was going to be here, people who are of like mind and like interests. So you encountered a little more, and I love to talk to people especially people who watch the channel. And thank you all for doing that, assuming you're not all here for him. Yeah, it's nice. It doesn't happen randomly that often. If I go to like a retro game store, then it happens, and that's really very cool. But I certainly never expected that to be the case when I just was like, I'm going to talk about this Dreamcast controller I've got. Like that was never supposed to be a thing. But that ended up being pretty cool.
And then the follow-up that I have, watched your video about the Toro.
Yes.
Completely confused.
Okay.
RGB, like am I going through RGB, am I going through VGA, like how do I get it to my frame?
Okay, so the question is, the Dreamcast has a VGA box called the Toro, made by these awesome guys in Turkey called the Bahar Bros. The Dreamcast can output through multiple different video types. The best one you can use is VGA. That's how you get basically enhanced definition out of it, like 480p. But not every game supports it. There's like 98 of them worldwide, mind you, that do not support it. So my recommendation to people is to use RGB SCART, which is like a European format that we never had. So that box is the only one on the market that supports both at the same time. Most of them either just do VGA or they include, maybe if you're lucky, like composite or S-Video as a bonus. So the idea would be that you keep it connected through VGA at all times, except for the games that don't work, and you switch it over to RGB and connect it that way. But since we're in North America, that requires special adapters and stuff, but I've done separate videos on those as well.
Yeah, it's basically like I've got a FrameMeister.
Yeah, you could connect it. Yeah, so I haven't used the FrameMeister myself, although I hear amazing things. But there's supposed to be an XRGB mini cable that comes out of it, and you connect that to the SCART port on that device, and then the Toro itself has this little switch that allows you to go between VGA and RGB so that you can get the best out of the handful of games that don't work with it. Yeah, no problem. Blair?
tell us about Figure It Out Productions, the thing you did before you even did video games.
All right, so welcome to the Quick Shoot series. Yeah. Okay. So, all right. Here's the story with that. I created a production company because I was going through film school at the time, and I was like, all right, one of the things you need, all my producers. Like, here's the thing. I did a lot of independent film stuff before YouTube, and they're like, oh, you need a production company. I was like, all right. What? I went through the names, and I eventually was like, oh, Figure It Out is like one of the top 5 things you ever say on a film set because you're stressed out. You're like, I don't fuck shit, damn it, I'll figure it out. And so I was like, that's a good name, let's just go with that. And so originally we were doing a bunch of short films and we were doing all these other projects, and I started putting them up on YouTube. So if you look at my earliest stuff, it's all trailers for short films I was working on. A few of them ended up there anyway, eventually. But over time I was like, I need more content. Well, what do I know? I know video games. I'll just make this channel about video games, and it evolved over that. The idea of the Quick Shoot series was that it was supposed to be just one of multiple series that was going on the channel. But over time it became pretty much the only one. And I know, it's an annoying intro, I get it, I don't care, I'm not changing it.
It's a classic.
Yeah, what's up?
Alright, 2 things. One, I think it was like 2 years ago I recommended this place to you.
Possibly.
Well, I did.
Well, I'm not saying you didn't.
Well, you announced that you came here and I almost dropped dookie in my pants, but...
Sorry about that.
My question for you is, what do you think Nintendo's going to do? Because I know you said that Pokemon is going with augmented reality.
Yeah, that's Pokemon Go, right? That's what
Yeah. But do you think that they're either going to do more augment, like the 3DS, or go more VR?
It's suddenly getting louder in here.
Yeah, there's a humming sound getting louder.
Sorry. So basically the question is, what do I think Nintendo... It was your fault.
I just fixed it.
Good boy. Sorry. All right, so you're asking what I think Nintendo's future is, basically?
Well, I mean, as far as, like, do you think they're going to do VR or augment, or just do...
It's hard to say, because nobody knows with Nintendo. For all we know, NX is a glorified VR helmet. You know, I don't know exactly, with some sort of local hardware for something. Yeah, I would assume they're kind of trying all things, because there's that part of them that's really naive and thinks that, you know, we can chase the ghost of the Wii forever and we can make this really successful console that sells a ton of units to the casual market. Maybe that's what they think NX will be as well, but at the same time there has to be smarter people than that recognize, see Dave's shaking his head, there has to be smarter people than that who recognize we need a fallback plan. And maybe mobile games is what they're thinking, because their IPs are still the most valuable part of their company. So maybe they're preparing for some sort of possible fallout the way Sega eventually did. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I just think that... Are you turning me up now? What are you doing?
Yeah, I'm just...
You can't just leave well enough alone.
Nope.
All right. But I guess it's hard to shake that crystal ball and see exactly what I think Nintendo may or may not be doing. But I wish them well. But history is going in a certain way that I think the Wii U was their Saturn, and the NX may be their Dreamcast, and the Wii was their 32X. Sorry, I'm not a fan of that console. Sorry. Stop. Shane, what are you doing?
I'm not touching anything.
Jumping off
There's literally a loose wire.
Are there gnomes hanging out down here? What's going on?
Ladies and gentlemen, we are experiencing technical difficulties. Please don't freak out.
I can be louder. It'll just do this.
Did you say panic?
I have a stick and I will use it on anyone who panics.
Everyone stay calm. What are you doing?
I'm not touching. It's like it's.
I've seen you touch it.
I think it's these wires.
We have witnesses. All right.
I'm gonna sit back.
No, you get on the mic. All right. So I'm sorry. What?
Just don't move your feet. just try not to move your feet around too much.
The feet?
Don't move your feet.
Okay.
But lean in.
Don't breathe.
Like this. Okay.
There you go.
Hey, everybody.
This is Shane. All right. Sorry. What's up?
So, jumping off Joey's comment on the Wii, you know, like, and I agree with the controllers. But is there any game on the Wii that you would actually say is better on the Wii? Like, is there actually something you say, like, is there something on the Wii you actually would say is worth playing even with the controllers?
Well, here's the thing.
2016?
Just Dance 2017 is coming to the Wii. How weird is that? So, all right, I'll answer your question in a second, but a guy sent me a message really like mad at me that I was surprised that Just Dance 2017 was coming to the Wii. I'm like, people get mad about anything, man. That's so weird. Because Just Dance 2017, Ubisoft said, oh, we're putting it on the NX, the Wii U, and the Wii. And I was just like, really? The Wii? And he's like, why are you so mad about that? I'm like, I'm not mad, I'm just confused. Okay, but the only game on the Wii that I really enjoyed was Mario Kart Wii, to be brutally honest with you, but I didn't have to use a Wiimote for that. Everything I tried playing with a Wiimote, now there was a bunch of them, especially the early stuff like Red Steel and Trauma Center and a bunch of other things. I never got into it. I just couldn't enjoy like the way I had to play that console. And it kills me, because there are definitely games that are masterpieces, like Super Mario Galaxy and all that, but like I can't get over that mental hurdle of wanting to play with this weird controller that makes me do extra stuff that I just don't enjoy doing. So to answer your question, no, there's nothing on the Wii that I can actually say is amazing because of motion controls, in my personal opinion. I'm sure many of you, if not all of you, would dispute this, but that's just how I feel about it.
How do you think PlayStation VR will hold up against Oculus and Vive?
The question is, how do I think PlayStation VR will do against Oculus and Vive, or Vive, whatever, I'm sorry, not enough coffee. It's going to be the market version. It might actually be the most successful just because it will be the most financially viable. It's what, $400 as opposed to the other ones that require, like $1,500 PCs on top of the device. I mean, they may be the better machines, but they may not be the most marketably successful ones. Whereas PSVR, it depends on how well it works with the currently existing version of the PS4, though. Because if the currently existing version of the PS4 can't run it particularly well, then you have a huge issue. Mm-hmm. But if it only works on like PS4K or Neo or whatever exactly, then that's going to be a tough sell.
There's like a lot of people running into VR right now, and a lot of companies don't really know what to do yet. So it's kind of like everybody's trying to invent the car, but they haven't invented the tires yet, you know what I mean? Like they've got this really cool idea for what VR should be, but nobody really knows what the game should be like. Like for instance, every first-person shooter you like right now will not work on VR. It just won't. You could try and play it, but you're gonna get violently ill if you try it, because you're basically moving around. Like let's say in Half-Life 2 when Gordon Freeman gets hit in the back of the head and he falls down, and like it's just like a quick little shot that happens and Alex appears. I played that sequence in VR, and if you're looking forward and suddenly your frame of view just does that, but your head's still straight, your brain goes, what's going on? And then you want to throw up. So it's like that kind of stuff doesn't work on VR. And that's like the primary focus for me is first person stuff. So if that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's a good point. The only thing I think I played on was something on Oculus Rift. It was like this weird game that was all white room and you have to like dodge bullets, kind of like Neo. And I didn't remember liking it that much, but I have to try more of them. Because the potential is there, it's just, it comes off as gimmicky to me, ultimately. I can't imagine it will ultimately be that successful, because I'm sure a lot of you are all like flirting with the idea, like, oh, that does sound kind of neat, but you know, how practically, you're gonna go home and really want to sit there with a bunch of just that much expensive stuff that you have to like rig up to your face after a whole day of work or whatever? I don't know, I just don't see it working to the mass audience, but maybe I'm wrong. I would love to be wrong, because I'm all about trying new things like that. What's up?
I guess with the increase in the price of getting a system with the VR, is that going to cause maybe a possible resurgence of video arcades?
I'd be astonished.
The problem with VR, like if you touch an arcade cabinet, and if any of you touch the arcade cabinets back there, wash your hands afterwards, because there's like a billion people touching those things.
He's a little bit of a germaphobe.
Right? But VR, you got to put that on your face. So at PAX, when they were having all the VR demos, everybody got pink eye. Because you got to think about that, or you never think about that, but you're putting on like stuff right on your face. So what they ended up doing is they created this, it's called it's like a VR fabric or something, a VR mask, and it goes over top the headset. VR cover, thank you. And what they do is whenever somebody's done playing it, they just wipe it clean, and then you go to the next player. So if you're ever going to use VR in a public setting, that's an important thing. So if there's ever going to be, like I remember when I was a kid, there was these really big VR headsets. Remember, like VR, it was just called V-Reality or whatever.
Yeah, the giant ones that you see in like First Kid, that Disney movie.
Oh yeah. Oh.
Am I the only person that remembers that?
Oh,
I remember that movie.
All right, we got one. All right.
I remember that.
Hey, all right.
Richie Rich, I think he had one in his like a big apartment.
Richie Rich.
Yeah.
A bunch of 90s movies. It was like the big push in the 90s. Now they're trying it again. The 90s are back.
Like Lawnmower Man and stuff. Like those things, they existed and they were fun to use. But the problem was back then, they just never thought, well, if 100 people in a day use this thing, someone's going to get sick somehow. So that's like one of the big problems. The more pieces you have to touch to your body, the more likelihood you're going to get sick from it. So it's like, it's one of those things. I think with VR in an arcade setting, keeping it clean is going to be the biggest deal. I mean, you have like an old pinball machine, it doesn't matter, but you have an old VR headset.
That's a good point. They could try it and get shut down just due to health hazard lawsuits or whatever.
Yeah, right.
That would be unfortunate, but.
You do a lot of videos on console generations and things like that. Do you think that the current trend towards VR and mobile is the biggest paradigm shift in gaming history, or do you think there was a bigger one previously?
That's an interesting question. I think it's all part of it. I think that you're probably right, but I think part of it is also that it's just becoming all digital, so you have to find different ways to distribute digital media. Yeah, that's an interesting question, but that's based on the proviso that VR is successful, but mobile gaming is here to stay. That'll be around for a while, and mobile gaming, I know we all think of mobile gaming as like, you know, Flappy Bird and stuff like that, but eventually it will be, I think it will just be gaming, and it will be something you just connect directly to your television, but it won't be, you know, Flappy Bird. It'll be everything you do now on consoles or PCs, but better, and it's just a singular box that's all a digital device that you likely pay through services on, like, you know, Steam will be on there probably, and whatever Xbox becomes, it'll be some sort of digital brand, PlayStation, the brand name. I mean, PlayStation, you can already get PlayStation apps on television for PlayStation Now. I mean, I think that's where that kind of stuff is going, and I think that is a huge shift because gaming is going to go a lot further away from hardware and more towards the software. That's my opinion.
I think like a lot of the reason that a lot of us would go for mobile gaming in general is that, or go avoid it, is that we don't have touch screens. Like, how many people here actually like touch screens over like a controller?
Over a controller?
One person. So like over a controller, like a controller is really important, right? And like Hyperkin is releasing a for your cell phone. It just goes on the bottom and it actually adds like Game Boy buttons to your cell phone, and it looks fantastic.
It actually reads Game Boy cartridges.
See, it does a whole bunch of stuff.
But then you're just going right back to almost legit hardware.
But that's what people want.
Exactly.
Right? So the cell phone maker, someone's gonna be like, well, you know what? If we release one of these cell phones with buttons, maybe it will actually work again.
We're going back to Blackberries.
PlayStation did it.
What's up?
So PlayStation did that.
With the PS Go?
Yeah, PS Go.
Yeah, that did work out. But
Did a phone.
the PS.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. I vaguely remember that.
He's talking about the experience.
I own an N-Gage. That was a fun story. It was like 2003, 2004 when that thing came out, and I was like the only teenager who didn't want a cell phone. And my mom's like, you have to have a cell phone. And I was like, no, she just comes home with an N-Gage. It's a video game thing, you'll like it. And I was like, all right. And then after it was discontinued, the games were worthless. And there's only like 40 or something of them. So like GameStop was shoving them out the door for like $4 each. And then all of a sudden I ended up with a basically full set of N-Gage games, which I never intended on getting. But yeah.
There is one cool N-Gage game though.
Only one?
Well, I guess if you like The Sims, or Tony Hawk on N-Gage, but
that's two.
So there's an Elder Scrolls game.
That's three.
And the Elder Scrolls one, it's a full 3D walk-around game. It's like Elder Scrolls,
like the Lost Keys or something
Lost
like that.
Keys,
Yeah, it sounds familiar.
So it's an actual like full-size Elder Scrolls game. Just happens to be mobile, and they never ported this to anything else. And I don't think they could because the
screen is, I don't know if you've ever seen N-Gage, it's not wide. It's like, you look at my phone, it's not like this, like a normal screen. It's this, always. It's a fixed angle like that. So yeah, games had to be specifically built for that.
All right, I have a serious question, okay? So I'm the kind of person where when I go to...
Shane?
I'm not touching anything.
Shane?
My feet are on the chair.
All right, Shane. Shane?
My feet are on the chair.
I apologize for Shane.
Maybe it's that guy.
I don't know.
Maybe it's you.
Maybe it's me. Maybe it doesn't like me. It wants me to stop.
You're stepping on the power.
I'm not doing anything. Shane. I'm sorry.
Anyway, so I think Pat Dean brings this up a lot, but like I hate like hell to have to go online and buy games, but then I also don't like going to some areas because they're so expensive. Are there any online websites you would recommend
For buying used games?
Yeah, for any console.
eBay, dude. That's like the only good, like, the thing is, Amazon's terrible for that, and I don't know any, like, I wish there was like awesome cheapvideogames.com or something, but like it doesn't exist. Like the only time you get deals like that is at things like this. Like it's just swaps. That's where you're gonna find all the best stuff. Because other than that, you have to resort to eBay or like just local stores. I don't know of any really good retro sites because for some reason they can't. I think it's just because people who buy retro want to actually see stuff in person, and I think that probably plays a factor into like not wanting to buy off the website, especially if you run a website like that, you have to have individual photographs of like 18 different copies of Mario Duck Hunt, and nobody wants to do that, so they use a stock photo, and then everybody knows they use a stock photo, so nobody trusts that copy actually looks good. So I assume that's why it's never been that successful, but maybe somebody will change that.
Something was creating like
I'll go with you first, and then you.
Okay, jumping off with websites and buying games. I don't know, I can't remember if you made it this time. I apologize if you did.
Well, no.
What is your view on GameStop, what they're doing with their retro games?
Okay, I don't support GameStop. I pretty openly boycott them, to be honest with you.
Same.
Yeah, so I have yet to find a GameStop that actually sells retro things. They must exist, but I also don't really look. I've heard that they've been selling repros, so they already have kind of a bad rap for that. I think they're doing it out of desperation, because I think that they see the all-digital future that's coming, and I think that they're like, we need something to fall back on. So if we can get into this whole retro thing, then we might stay alive. Shane?
Look, I couldn't be farther away.
I don't know, it's your Canadian energy.
How do you say about?
Yeah, your metric system.
What's your favorite hockey team?
But yeah, there was. I don't actually like hockey at all. I'm like the worst Canadian you'll ever meet for that. Technically not really. I mean, sometimes, but like it's been years, you know. Sorry, Canadian bacon?
Yeah.
Oh, back bacon. Yeah, I guess.
That is true, by the way. They all call it that.
I can't remember the last time I had that.
It's just ham.
Yeah.
Yeah, really.
It's just a thicker cut of ham.
Yeah. But GameStop.
Yes, that's what we're talking about.
They're actually like making video games now, like actually developing their own games.
So they're a
Publisher now, yeah. So
I did not know that.
What's it? Guys that just made Ratchet and Clank.
Insomniac.
Insomniac is making a GameStop game. It's about being in a submarine or something like that. Yeah, I mean, hey, if they want to enter the video game development market, sure, but like, are they only going to sell it in the store?
That would be interesting. Yeah, they probably would. At least they would try that, because then it gives you a reason to shop at GameStop and have it first. But that's I hadn't heard that. That makes sense though. Again, they're trying to find other avenues because they see digital's coming.
Yeah.
This may be a question that could just be answered by directing me to the right video, because I haven't seen it yet. As I've learned more about the RGB output issue,
yes.
The one hole that's sort of been left in my understanding is what market forces were in place in the U.S. that made it so that we got stuck with all of the worst outputs. Oh, God.
I have no idea, dude. The question is...
Anybody has covered that well?
That's for you, Corey.
Who's Corey? What's going on? Oh. The question is, why didn't we get RGB SCART in North America? Answer is, I have no idea, dude. Like,
for how long were we content with composite?
We didn't know. Like, we thought S-video was a luxury. But yeah, no, I mean, SCART was a video cable format that, you know, Europe had, Australia had, Japan had, large parts of the world all had it. We didn't have it, and every time you bring it up, everybody just looks at you like, what are you talking about? Because nobody knows. The US and Canada, neither of us got that. So, yeah, I have no idea what the reason was. I'm sure it was just somebody said, nah, that port's too expensive, don't put it in there, and then they never did. That'd be my guess. Or it's just some patent issue, I mean, who knows? First hand, and then I'll go with the second one in the back. You're first.
Two questions. I know you don't really like handhelds very much, but would you think you'd ever do like how you went to the console generation, would you ever do like a history of handhelds?
The question is, will I ever do handheld console generation videos? Yeah, eventually. The problem is I don't have exactly the same passion for those. I don't dislike them. That's a common, like, people are like, oh, you hate them. It's like, I just don't like looking at a tiny screen when I have a television. Like, that's about it. It's nothing against the games. The games are obviously high caliber, and if I can play those games on a television through like the Game Boy player on the GameCube, love it. It's just that I don't like, you know, looking at a little screen as much as I like looking at a big screen. But the answer is, yeah, I'll do those eventually. I don't know when, but I don't think I have as many of those as I actually do have consoles, so it may not be as thorough. I don't exactly have the same passion for it, but I'll do my best. What was the second one?
Would you ever do like a full game?
If it's my last video ever. Because tour videos are a really bad idea for someone to start off with on YouTube, because you've just blown your whole load. There is nothing left for you to show. You can't really build off of that, because everybody's like, well, I know what this collection is like. Next, and you move on. So that's why I always feel like it would be a good final episode whenever I stop. But I have no plans of doing that anytime soon. In the back.
How valid do you think the most recent NX cartridge rumors with the patent of Zelda Breath of the Wild being on disc in cartridge?
It's funny, we actually talked about that earlier. I think, no, it's okay. I think that, I do think that there's a lot of validity to it. I hope that's true. There was another report yesterday that it's definitely not digital, which is awesome. So that would either leave discs or cartridges in some form. And I think that's much more probable given Nintendo's distaste for disc-based media in general, and all the technical advantages that could come with it, especially the way that cartridges, I use that in quotations, have evolved since the 90s. So.
It's actually a two-part question. One for Adam and then the follow-up one for Shane. Adam, just a little bit ago, mentioned the single player for the game. Have you been able to find any viable option other than a worry pad to play the Game Boy game?
No. I just used the GameCube controller when I was actually using it. It's not the best, obviously. I actually know a store that has one of those Ori controllers. Ungodly expensive, but yeah, I wish I had bought one of those when they were out and relevant, because they were much cheaper, and that was a mistake. But no, I haven't found anything special.
And then the one for Shane. Loved your NES biking video.
Thanks.
What is the most obscure workout type thing, whether it be like the Wii Balance board or the bike? Would you say it was like why put it?
There's a guy running around today. His name's DeeDave, and he created a video on an amazing device. There's a video game console that was created by Jackie Chan. And it was only released. It's weird. He did a whole video on it. So Jackie Chan made this exercise video game system. Now, believe it or not, Nintendo stole the Wii idea from this system. It predates the Wii by 2 or 3 years, and it's all motion controls, the entire thing. It's got a bowling game, but the problem was all the controllers didn't have an insert like the Wii remote has, right? So you could just put it in like a golf swing or whatever, golf club.
He's Canadian,
right? The actual bowling game would have a bowling ball. The actual boxing game would have boxing gloves. And there was no little sensor or anything that you put in one to the other, so you had to get all individual controllers. The system, the name completely eludes me, but this system is insane because Jackie Chan shows up to teach you how to do things. Like there's this one game where he's running away from ninjas, and there's this pad on the ground that you have to run, and then every time you want to attack them, you just stomp with both feet and then you kick him in the face or something. That's a serious game that was made, and it was big for quite a while there because everyone's like, motion control games, motion control games. Then just a couple years later, Nintendo releases the Wii and everyone's like, well, nothing else? This is unique, no one's ever done this before. So it completely got washed out, but it does exist. I think he might have actually found some of the games on the floor here last year too, so just look for his stuff. His name's DeeDave. It's an incredible video of just that kind of stuff. But as much as I like the Super Nintendo Exertainment bike, I thought that was way cooler, just because how weird it was.
Very nice. So,
I've always thought that because of the new session axles, that since the 7th generation went so long, I've always believed that going so long is actually a big problem with what's causing the problems today. Hardware problems and weaknesses, PS4 and Xbox One, obviously. In that, if you would have had the normal 5 or 4 year generation cycle, we'd be going in that generation this year, next year. And the consoles would still probably be on par with PC, because when the 360 came out, it was about a high-end PC. Would you agree that going on for so long is probably one of the worst things to happen to the industry?
It's an interesting question. So the question is, the 7th generation PS3, Wii, 360, the fact that it lasted freakishly long, was that ultimately detrimental to the gaming industry? The answer is, I don't know, maybe. There's definitely parts that were negative about it, and there was positives. I mean, like, a lot of people didn't have to spend as much money on new hardware, which I'm sure a lot of people really enjoy being able to do. But then there's a lot of negatives, like you effectively screwed up the normal console cycle. It's just, I guess I would say it would be nice if like the Xbox One and PS4 in their current iterations had launched, in maybe like 2010, 2011, something like that. That would have been nice, but then the other factor that is, like, could they keep up with PCs? I would say probably not, because there was a time when they could, but PCs just go too fast now. They update much more frequently than locked. Someone die? Hope not. That'd be a unique story.
Killed him.
Sorry, I didn't mean to be that boring. What was I even talking about? The console hardware is locked, which used to be okay because they used to just come out way out of the gate before PCs, but PCs just accelerate way too fast now. And I think with PS4 and Xbox One, they had launched anemic, we all knew that. I think that was just down to almost coincidence. I think that Sony did it for financial reasons. Sony has a history of launching consoles that are far more expensive to produce than they sell them for, and then they make money back on the games. They couldn't afford to do that this time around, so they didn't. They made a much more cost-effective console. Microsoft, on the other hand, was cursed by Don Matrick, who seemed to make nothing but bad decisions while he was working there. I mean, that whole thing about it, the Xbox One being below the PS4 should never have been a thing. Microsoft has a ton of money for those types of things, and that's why they're going ahead with Scorpio. That thing was just plagued by the ghost of the Kinect. We have to cheap out on some of the hardware to get the Kinect in there. I think that Microsoft could have done that right under better leadership.
I think with the current generation of consoles, especially with the Xbox One and the PlayStation 4, from the developers I've spoken to, they are really, really liking this system because it's like a PC and it's so easy to develop for. It's just basically Windows, and then you make games really simply. Simply, that's a word. So
Canadian word.
Yeah. The way that they're going about it, it really seems like they're going to start creating yearly iterations of these consoles that have incremental updates that increase maybe a little bit more video RAM, or maybe a bit more like RAM in general, or a bit more space, or just tiny little features like this, and they're just going to keep it going so that they can just sell them that way.
So you're basically talking about the cell phone model.
Yeah, pretty much. I think they're going to adapt that, because I think it makes sense to the way they're designing these things.
Unfortunately, I don't disagree with you. I'm just sad by it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's probably very likely. I saw him first, and then I'll go you, then I'll go you. What's up? Okay, so he's asking about the price of the Xbox One S and whether or not it's a pretty good price, and if perhaps it means that the original version of the Xbox One was overpriced. Just to be sure, just to make sure you're clear, the Xbox One S is not the Scorpio?
Yes.
Okay, all right. Xbox One S is just the slim model, and there's a version, and then 1 terabyte version's $350. Oh, my buddy James Rainier. Hey. Shout out to James Rainier. He's one of the premier people over in the Shenmue community. Anyway, and then $300 for the regular model. I mean, technology gets cheaper as time goes on, and of course they didn't have to shoehorn the Kinect into it, which was a huge part of the original price point. So I think it's just a combination of those two factors. It's just they didn't have to have the Kinect involved, and they got technology just gets cheaper over time, and maybe they're just willing to take more of a loss on it. That would be my overall guess. There was a question over there.
Do you test every game that you play?
Of course. Here's the thing about disc-based media. You have to, if you really want to know if it works, you can't just pop it into a console. You have to like rip it to a computer to make sure it can read every single sector of the disc. That way you know that Dave's not finding that funny. Oh, sorry. Anyway, yeah, I rip every single sector of every disc just to make sure there's nothing wrong with it. The only one I can't do that with is the Wii U. I'm sure a lot of people would consider that excessive, but you bought it, you might as well make sure it works. Is that it?
Yeah, I guess another.
Say what?
I guess if Shenmue 3 never had like a physical release, would you not?
Before it was the PS4 version physical was announced, I still backed it for other people. I would have cared that much ultimately about playing it, but thankfully I didn't have to worry about that because they gave us the physical PS4 version. It was always in the back of my mind, you know, like the biting urge, but I ultimately didn't have to deal with it. I would tell you I probably would ultimately not have done it, but that's easy to say now that I know, you know. There was another one? Someone else had their hand, yeah.
I'm a little worried about Nintendo lately. Do you think NX is going to break it? Do you think it's going to be a success? What are your thoughts?
Well, like I said a little earlier, I think that the NX could potentially be, Nintendo's Dreamcast. I mean, like the way the Wii U kind of was their Saturn. I think the NX, the way history is unfolding, this seems very familiar. And I think the NX may be an awesome system that not nearly enough people buy. Especially now that we know Scorpio and Neo are a thing, because for a while there it seemed like, oh, all right, this thing is just their replacement for the 8th gen, and it will potentially overtake the Xbox One and PS4 in any number of ways. But now that they're essentially like, hey, we're going to leapfrog you too, then you're kind of right where you are already, with the Wii U being anemic compared to its competitors. So that shouldn't matter, but unfortunately it does. It depends on how they market it, I guess, because if you're just marketing it to the same people you tried to market the Wii U to, which was people in Pottery Barn, then you're not going to be successful. They have a lot of work to do, unfortunately, to win back a lot of people such as yourselves that consider themselves gamers. They don't do that. They have not really tried that hard to do that. I mean, their E3 presentation made that very abundant. Yes, Legend of Zelda is awesome, and somehow they won on just that one game, which is impressive. But still, unless they do more like that, I don't know how they're going to ultimately be successful in the long run. It could just be another example of like, there's this amazing game, there's a bunch of amazing games, and still nobody buys the console. We'll see. I'll start back there. Wait, I said I would get to you, didn't I? Sorry, I'll get to you, and then we'll go back in this like three-way pattern here. Okay, go ahead.
I have two questions. One for you and then one for him.
Okay.
What are you, like, as a collector, like, I'm not going after chasing the expensive games. What are your views on reproductions?
Depends on the context. I mean, like, I would not get, if I was going for a full set of, which I'm not, like, if I was going for like a full set of Super Nintendo, I wouldn't be like, what's that one, like Kagami? Like the one that was like a Blockbuster rental? Hagane, sorry. Yeah, that one's like a $2,000 game. It would be like really difficult for me to decide if I'm going to try and find a way to buy that, or if I'm going to be like, no, repro's good enough. Maybe in that case it would be, but that's a tough call. But since I don't really collect that much in the way of cartridges, I don't really have to deal with that as much. I don't have a full cartridge set of anything. So I guess I'm open to the idea of repros when they're more creative. I like the ones that, like Mega Man Wily Wars, like they brought that over here for a Genesis cartridge. They fixed the frame rate issue for North American televisions. That I'm cool with, because I would, even if I bought this, was it 600-pound game, the UK version, couldn't use it. So it would have been like a huge waste of money, and I don't even really collect Genesis that much. So I'm open to the idea of reproductions in certain contexts.
Or like Nintendo World Championship cards.
Yeah.
You want to try it out, but you don't want to dole out.
Yeah, exactly. Here's the thing. I'm also fine with definitely trying games that way. Yeah, for sure. Like EverDrives and everything. That's all fun. But if you want to add to your collection, I don't know if you really consider a reproduction to actually be part of the collection. It's better to play it that way, but not necessarily to say, I have a full Super Nintendo set. I mean, all of them are reproductions, but hey, that's just me. So we said we'd go in this pattern, back there.
Why do you think the Xenocider Kickstarter campaign failed, and do you think maybe it'll be a stepping stone for more into
Unfortunately, I think the failure of that Kickstarter kind of killed that potential, in my opinion. So the guy who runs that thing is a guy named Carlos. I actually talked to him like the night it failed. And so I think what happened with that is they just needed too much money for, like a lot of people, as much as Dreamcast is awesome, especially to me, and as many people that will back it as there are, there's not enough to raise the kind of money they needed. And I think like the most you could really get out of that is maybe 15 grand. They needed like 100,000, something like that. There's just not enough money there, dude. And 3D games are much more expensive to produce than 2D games. At least with 2D games, you can make 2D games that look really beautiful on the Dreamcast. Granted, people always say, why does it look like a Sega Genesis game? But it's like, you know, that's what they have the budget for. Whereas what they were working on it looked a lot like Space Harrier, but it looked like a PS1 version of Space Harrier. So everybody was looking at it like, why does it look like shit? And they didn't want to back it. So my guess is, unfortunately, since that was the one and only time a 3D game has been attempted through Kickstarter on the Dreamcast, that it may be, since it failed, unfortunately, very badly, I kind of doubt anyone else is going to try. However, there's a demo of it that they released publicly on the Kickstarter, so you can at least try it. James?
Yeah, so hypothetical question. One of the periods of the game industry I find really interesting was when a lot of companies would kind of go into the game industry to make a console just because they saw the market for it.
Mm-hmm.
I think that was when the Genesis started to like give Nintendo some competition.
You're talking like early 90s, right?
Yeah, like when Philips jumped in.
3 minutes?
Sony jumped in. So my question is, in modern games, is there a company, and this question is for both of you, is there a company that you would like to see jump into the game market because of something interesting or some twist that they would put into the industry?
That's a tough one.
Yeah.
I've been waiting to ask that one for a while.
Because like the thing is, a lot of the companies I would think of have at least done some iteration. Like I'm not a big Apple fan. They tried. They had the Pippin. I'm the Samsung. Oh wait, they had the new one. Like there are companies that made attempts. I don't know who else could actually do it competently.
Pixar.
Yeah.
See,
Pixar was owned by Apple. They technically were there when the Pippin was made.
Right.
See, everybody's involved.
Pixar is really, really talented what they did. They created their own software to make their own movies. They do all the assets themselves. They would understand how to make a game.
Try. Because I don't think there's any other like dedicated game companies that are going to make an effort. Like I wouldn't really want to see an EA console, and I don't think they would try to make one. 3DO he's right. 3DO was mostly done by EA. So yeah, I don't know who else would actually attempt to make their own hardware. I think we're kind of too late for that kind of thing because. I guess if you're talking about early 90s, who else was big in the early 90s that could have potentially done something like that?
There was like a couple. I know Philips got into the market.
Yeah, CDI.
And like there was a couple like that. But you know who I'd actually like to see make their own dedicated video game console because they could probably reduce the cost of hardware significantly? AMD or Nvidia. If they made their own consoles, and I mean not the Shield, like an actual thing that people want to buy. I mean that would probably be impressive,
Shots fired.
Shots fired if somebody could hear the shots at all. Nobody bought it.
You just said it into a microphone. All right. Well, we'll take one more because apparently we're almost out of time. So anybody else? You got one hand. You got it.
Do you see a collaborative effort between game companies that were coming to that, Nintendo and Sony, trying to do it? That
for
become one company, but like Nintendo will put out this game.
So you mean for like mutual hardware?
Yeah, well, like a mutual hardware system and software.
I think that time's passed. Like I was just saying there, I think the time for crazy hardware is pretty much over. The question was when Sony and Nintendo got together to make the PlayStation, which was like a Super Nintendo CD type of prototype. Long story. We're done? Okay. All right. Well, short answer is no, I don't think that's going to happen. I want to thank every single one of you for coming out here. This was absolutely awesome of you. If you don't mind, can I get like just a shot of all of you? Just, I don't know. Thank you very much. That'll be in some videos.